Again, good morning and welcome to the morning briefing presented by the Washington County Chamber of Commerce. I'm Jeff Catula, president of the Chamber. Before we begin, I'd like to thank our sponsors this morning, our continuing sponsor, Community Bank, and our event sponsor, Washington Health System. Thank you as always for your support of the Chamber. This morning, we have the pleasure of welcoming John Ray, the regional president of West Penn Power. Good morning, John. John, good morning. Can you hear us?
Good morning, Jeff. How are you doing?
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks for joining us
Yes,
this morning.
I can.
Thank you for joining us this morning.
Good to be with you.
John, you're the relatively new regional president of West Penn Power. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
All right. Thank you very much. Glad to be here. I just celebrated 40 years with the company, with FirstEnergy. Prior to coming here to West Penn Power, I was the director of operations services at Penelec. So I had been in Pennsylvania for quite a while, but I moved, my wife and I just moved to the Latrobe area. I became president of West Penn Power in April of 2019. So we're glad to be in Southwest Pennsylvania. Really looking forward to getting to know the area. One, I guess, interesting topic is we actually moved the week where I say the world went crazy. We moved the week of March 16th.
Okay.
We're really glad to get into our house and get to know the area a little bit.
Well, we're glad to have you here in Southwestern Pennsylvania. John, before we start, I would like to take a moment and thank you and all the employees of West Penn Power for your service during the COVID-19 emergency. I think sometimes we forget the importance of power in our region and power generation and service to our homes. And you guys are the ones truly keeping the lights on for us. And please pass on our thanks to you and your entire team. You truly are on the front lines.
We'll do that, and we appreciate it.
John, I wanted to start with you.
It was a trying time. It was a trying time for us because of all the changes that had to happen really quick. So I appreciate that those comments. I will pass them on. Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate all your crews do. I mean, you guys are truly on the front lines. John, I'd like to start by talking about the overall West Penn Power service territory, just to put it in perspective for our members and participants this morning. What is your service territory here in the state?
Okay, we cover about 10,000, a little bit over 10,000 square miles. So obviously we cover the southwest corner of Pennsylvania, but we then span up, kind of surround Duquesne and Penn Power area. We go up to the Butler and Clarion area, and then all the way down through the Greensburg area. But then non-continuous, we do serve up in the State College area, St. Mary's, and then all the way up to the New York border, up in that area. And then another non-continuous area, we have McConnellsburg and Waynesboro, down on the Maryland border. So along all those areas, we kind of cross over other utilities. A lot of them are FirstEnergy utilities, mainly Penelec for the most part. And we serve about 720,000 customers total.
Okay. And how many people do you employ in that territory?
Okay, we have 792 employees. Around 350 of those are non-bargaining, and the rest are bargaining unit employees. They're members of the UWA Local 102. And again, they're spread out across those areas I just explained.
Okay. Now, if I would mind turning your attention to Washington County for a moment, how many customers in Washington County do you serve?
Okay, we serve about 108,000 customers, probably a little bit more than that in that area. Very busy area for us. It's a growth area for us, and one of the, I would say, the targets for us as far as infrastructure improvements because of that increased loading that we're seeing in the area. And we have basically 2 or 3 shops local to that area. The Washington shop is our largest. Boyce is a little bit smaller, and then we'll go up. The next closest is probably Charleroi. And we can share workers across those areas pretty readily.
John, I like when you said that you see Washington County as a growth area. Could you maybe expand upon that a little bit? Why the company sees our county as a growth area?
I just think, and I've talked to our external affairs, I think it's just a matter of how, I guess, the infrastructure is built there. I-79, I-70 intersections just brings a lot of businesses, in my opinion. The closeness of the Pittsburgh area and the airport for business purposes, I think it's just a prime area for business, and we're seeing that growth on a yearly basis.
Those are all things that we see as strategic advantages in Washington County: our infrastructure system, our proximity to the airport, and of course our low tax environment here. So it's glad to see that you guys feel the same. And one thing that we have been working on in Washington County, of course, is workforce development. As you know, you're only as good as the employees that work for you, especially in your case at West Penn Power. And I understand that you guys have something called the Power Systems Institute in your own workforce development issues. Could you maybe expand upon that and tell us a little bit about it?
Right, it's a homegrown product. It was started by FirstEnergy. It's mainly to fill our needs for linemen and substation mechanics or substation electricians. So it entails a 2-year degree. It's electric technology degree, and then they would go in and part of those degrees in a 2-year program, they would learn the field work and the pole work and the substation control room work. They would come out of that system as a mid-level apprentice, and then they would have to go through a couple steps to become journeymen. But it's a really good program. It gives a well-rounded education to these employees, and it also creates an avenue for them to go beyond those field-type workers into management. Right now, we have the capability of up to 25 line employees in that system and 6 substation employees. The line employees go to Westmoreland County Community College for their college degree, and the substation go to Penn Highlands in Johnstown.
Okay. If you don't mind me asking, how did that partnership with the community college come about? I'm sure it had to do with a lack of people going into that field. It's good to see, but could you tell us maybe a little bit how that came about, that partnership?
I know how it was done at Penelec. I believe it was done the same down here at West Penn. But it was just negotiated with the college to cover the curriculum that they needed to have as far as that electrical technology degree. And then it's a partnership with the colleges long term. Obviously, if their needs change, we would have to change, and if our needs change, we would approach them first. But again, we look at it as a nice quality education, both from their college degree and their craft line.
Well, it sounds like a nice partnership and well-timed and well-needed as well. Now, we'd like to talk in Washington County always, and you mentioned this before.
One other thing, if I could add, we do recruit in the areas. Again, a busy area being Washington County, we would do some recruiting in the high schools, technical schools in the area, to try to get students into that program. Our external affairs representatives are part of that. Also, some of our local linemen, local managers take part in going out and talking to people to try to draw them in. It's always better to get the employees that want to come in from the area where they want to probably live the rest of their life, and so we're very conscious of that.
And do you partner and do you look for recruits at trade schools, high schools, anywhere, or where do you usually get your applicants for that program from?
Usually it's trade schools and the high schools, just getting the word out about the degree. There's a website that people could go on and find out all about it, and it's for now it's totally covered by the company. So there's a lot of attention to it and a lot of people that really are interested in it. Then we do a couple of orientation sessions to just talk about it in general. We'll get up to 100 people, maybe even more at some of those sessions, just showing interest in it.
And if you don't mind me asking, when the apprenticeship is done, is the apprentice, do they owe you a few years to work for West Penn Power? I'm assuming they do.
Right, they're tied in for about, I think it's 5 years, if I'm not mistaken. So 5 years, and then they can go and do anything they want.
Well, that sounds like a great program and well needed. John, you mentioned a little bit earlier concerning growth, and what would you say in terms of what's the next large-scale significant infrastructure growth that you see West Penn embarking upon?
I think right. I think you were breaking up there. Could you repeat the question, please?
Sure, John. Sorry. What in terms of large-scale significant infrastructure, where do you see the next investments in our area?
Okay, we have, last year we got approval from the Pennsylvania Commission it's called our long-term infrastructure improvement program, to spend dollars to improve our system across West Penn Power. That's called our LTIP program. That LTIP program then earmarks money that obviously it would be aging infrastructure, maybe some areas where if we have growth, we might need to do some reconductors because capacity's increased. But right now in Washington County, just from that program, we're going to spend about $3.25 million in 2020. It drops down to about $500,000 next year. So we're doing a lot of good projects this year, and I'm seeing reconductor projects again. That would be capacity issues or condition type issues. I'm seeing recloser replacements. Those are items that we have in our substations that sense a fault and we'll try to reclose. If they don't reclose, they'll stay out, but they kind of manage our system, so to speak. So we're doing some replacement of those. We're doing some new source projects in the area, obviously, again, based on that growth. And then just a lot of equipment replacement. So that $3.25 million is about a quarter of our, about 10% of our budget for this year for that LTIP program overall of West Penn.
And that will be invested near term here in the county. Okay.
Right.
Now,
so yeah, like I said, it's about $3.25 million this year and $500,000 next year. And then as we see the need, there'll be other projects. That LTIP program does go for 5 years, so it goes out to 2024.
Okay. So it sounds like some significant investments here.
Correct.
Now, before we go to our next question, John, I would like to remind our participants that they are more than welcome to ask questions of John this morning by using your Q&A button, which is you'll see at the bottom of your screen. John, I'd like to continue our discussion on your investments here in the county and in the region. Do you typically use local contractors?
We do for some of the work. We do excavation work, paving work, building maintenance. We do hire local contractors, but the main work that we do with the lines and substations and even forestry is a qualified electrician type work. Forestry, obviously, they're very skilled at what they do. So we do have qualified contractors that we use across the FirstEnergy footprint. A lot of times those contractors will come into an area where they do work like that $3.25 million. They'll come in and stay in that area for the whole project. They'll probably go home on weekends. They normally work 410s, but we do bring in qualified contractors that can do the electrical work. Some of that work is done energized, so it's just not something that just anybody can do. It's very skilled work.
Okay. Now, speaking of investments within the county, again, there's a lot of talk, of course, about electric vehicles, things of that nature. Are you guys investing anything in EV or additional electrical vehicle development, charging stations, things of that nature?
Right. Right now, I would say we're really letting the market try to show where that's gonna all that work is gonna settle. We do have an arm of FirstEnergy continually monitoring the growth of electrical vehicles in the charging stations and paying attention to maybe what the commission brings up about it. But right now, I'm not going out and just wholesale building charging stations. There are charging stations we know going up at, usually there's a market. I've seen them at Sheets. I've seen them at hotels. Haven't seen many at rest stops or anything like that. So I think it's something that's just evolving. And again, the market will dictate what happens. Obviously, we'll source those units when they're constructed, but actually building out the infrastructure for that has not happened yet. But from my opinion, it's in the future. We're just trying to keep an eye on it and stay ahead of it as the use grows.
Okay. John, we do have a few questions coming in, a couple of them concerning power generation. I wanted to spend a few moments with you on that. West Penn doesn't actually produce energy, is that correct?
That's correct. We have no generation at West Penn Power.
Can you maybe explain the process and how that works for our viewers?
So we would go out and we would actually basically I believe the customers have the choice of who supplies their power. We would then be the distribution and transmission company. So the power comes into our system uh, from the generators wherever they might be, wherever they're chosen. That power flows across our transmission system to our substation system, and then the substation breaks it down into the sub-transmission distribution voltages. So we have no generation. We just mainly move the power.
So this really isn't your grandfather's power companies. It used to be where the company was generating and then getting the power to the customers. That's pretty much correct then?
Correct. And I'll just be general. When I first started, again, it was 40 years ago. When I first started with the company, we did own generation, and I would say that generation, transmission, distribution system was designed for that captive market, that smaller market. When it all opened up, it created a lot of work for mainly that flow of power comes across the transmission system. So it really dictated a lot of transmission upgrades to be able to move the power efficiently. And then obviously that was the main focus once the generation was separated. As far as the distribution system, it's pretty resilient. The transmission system feeds it, and again, it's all just about moving the power from wherever the generation is happening.
Okay. That leads us to the first question that we have from one of our participants. The question is, what is your electricity mix currently? Is it coal, natural gas, renewables? What is the mix of the power that's being generated and that you're transmitting?
Right. I don't have the numbers on all, but they're still all in use. It's nuclear, fossil, wind generation, solar, some solar. I'm talking across FirstEnergy. So basically anybody that can generate onto the system as long as they follow the rules of the commission or the tariff in the area. So I would say that it's a mix of all of those, and obviously that mix is going to change over the years. And really the people that need to pay attention to that and adapt to that is in the generation area.
So it sounds like you have a nice mix of renewables, coal, electric, just across the generation system. And I'm sorry, transmission.
Right. Right.
Another question.
Right. And again, they generate our transmission system. We do own the transmission system. It's just a matter of moving the power from wherever it's generated efficiently to the customers.
Okay. John, we have a couple questions here about tree trimming and how that works. And could you maybe explain that process a little bit on how your guys trim the trees and keep them clear?
Right. Okay. We're in a 10-year program, so we look at our circuits. We're going to go out and trim them about every 10 years, but we do pay attention also to areas where there might be accelerated growth, or if we have maybe some outages that are happening a little bit too often as far as trees, and we'll go back and trim those trees. We call that off cycle, but it's really a 10-year cycle. And then again, we're clearing the whole right of way. If we have the opportunity to clear the whole right of way, while we're out there, we also take danger trees. And the danger trees would be dead trees or dying trees along the right of way. We would approach the property owners and get the rights to remove those trees. Again, trying to alleviate the problem of a future outage. And excuse me, I said 10-year. I was talking about, that's the coal program. The forestry program is a 5-year program. Okay. But we will go back in and look at trees before those 5 years. If we have pockets that need attention, we'll place the money there and get those cleaned out.
Another interesting question that came in, again, concerning trees. If someone saw a downed tree on a line or perhaps needed one cut back on a property, who should they contact? Is there a particular department or someone that they can contact?
Right now, the best way to contact is just the call center number, which every one of our FirstEnergy utilities has a call center contact number. So that would generate the what they call a ticket to have that looked at. So I would always recommend looking in your phone book or on our website, there's usually an 800 number that would generate that ticket for that work.
Right.
I would just warn people, if you see a line leaning, or if you see a tree leaning on a line, stay away. You can't tell whether there's anything that would be could be energized even through that tree.
That's good advice. That's good advice. I'd like to talk to you for a moment about economic development, and there was a great question that came in concerning that. How does your team at West Penn work with local developers, economic development officials, people in those fields to help promote new job creation and new company attraction in your service area?
Okay, I guess that would always go back to our external affairs groups and our and their teams, just to keep a finger on the pulse of the area. If there's a lot of growth coming in, obviously we're looking at our system. Can it handle that growth? Can it handle the increased loads? So as much work as we can get done early in the game on that, it allows us to then adapt to the changes of our system as much as possible. So I think it's just keeping a finger on the pulse, obviously through the chamber. I think you would know if there's new business coming in. We would then, reach out, talk to those businesses through our engineering group, see what the loading is going to be, make sure that we're going to be okay with that loading. And then if we're not, if it's going to increase loading, then we make it changes to our system, proposed changes to our system that would allow that. So we're very, very conscious of knowing what's going on in our areas, knowing where those growth areas are going to be, and then adapting to it well ahead of time.
John, I appreciate that answer, because at the chamber here, we work very closely with Randy Durr and Jim Cannon from your team, and I'd like to thank you for all their hard work working with us to promote business growth in the county. They do an excellent job. We have a very close relationship with them, so thank you. And speaking about your activities in the community, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about, you guys play a significant role, especially here in Washington County, regarding corporate giving and, of course, support for local and regional nonprofits. I'm sure that will continue in the future, but can you maybe talk a little bit about that and your commitments to our local nonprofits and other groups here in the county?
Okay, right. We do, ever since I started with FirstEnergy has always been a community giver. I would say mainly through the United Way, but the main focus or the main vehicle of that giving is through the FirstEnergy Foundation. So it goes back to our holding company, FirstEnergy. They allot money every year to the nonprofits. Last year in Washington County, they donated about $75,000. It was about 10% of that West Penn Power allotment of the FirstEnergy Foundation funds. This year it's going to be down a little bit. We're finding that there's less activities happening this year, so it's still going to be about 10% of our giving at West Penn. It's going to be around $45,000 unless some other things come in throughout the year. But again, Randy Durr and his group pay attention. They get those requests. We analyze them, look at them, and then we make the donations accordingly. And again, I would say the United Way, food banks, things like that are really popular, are really needed right now, is where that money is focused. We look at the United Way of really knowing where the need is. And so if we can get them the money, we know that it'll be taken well care of. And we're going to keep doing that. One other thing that we do, which I think has been great, is that like a personal donation. If I made a personal donation, the FirstEnergy Foundation will match it dollar for dollar. So we're very conscious of social responsibility and helping the communities in any way we can.
Well, John, we certainly appreciate your commitment to Washington County, your commitment to our community. We also appreciate your time this morning. Thank you for being with us. We appreciate all the good work that you guys are doing. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it. Hopefully it was helpful.
John, we certainly appreciate you being on our morning briefing. Again, thank you to John Ray, Regional President of West Penn Power, for being with us this morning. We appreciate your time and the good work you do. Thank you. We also want to thank our sponsors for this morning, Washington Health System. Thank you, John. We'd like to thank Washington Health System, our event sponsor, and of course, Community Bank, who's also welcoming their new CEO, John Montgomery, to Washington County. Look forward to working with him and continue our good relationship with Community Bank. On behalf of the Washington County Chamber of Commerce, we appreciate you being with us this morning and have a great business day.